The Gambit is the most important ship for the rest of the year. Hey everyone, Derpy here, welcome back to another Battle Pirates video. Today I'm going to be going through the Gambit and the build here. This is part of the Ultimate Gambit Guide Part 3. The first one was VXP, the second one was the target itself, which I would definitely make sure you go through. A lot of that is really important to understand when you go through the build. There's a reason why I post that first. This video, the build, will still be here when I'm done. Now, I will, of course, also post this build in the builds document, which I have linked in the YouTube description. I'll even have it up there before this video goes out. Let's originally start with going through the Gambit, and by the way, you are seeing some video footage on the left side here. I ran through the target. I'm trying to get some pretty decent stuff here, just something more exciting to look at and see some of these things in action. It will loop back, so you may see the same things over and over. Let me know if you do like it. Now, I first want to start out with the hole on the right side here, going through and talking about some of the things that you are seeing, the stats and the auras with the drones. And we're still trying to get the flagship named Derpy's Gambit. Let Kixeye Kixeye know if you like that idea. In any case, you do have some of it on here from the TAC Lab. Explosive and building damage is standard for a mortar garrison hull. Lots of combat speed. It is a fairly fast hull, but when it really gets down interesting is the special abilities here. It does have sonar for backwards compatibility with mines. I'm assuming there's no mines in this target. Now, the pawn spawner here will try and spawn a drone if you are stopped, and that drone has a chance to emit a special aura, which are those green rings on the left side that you're seeing, one right below my ship. And this will increase combat speed and explosive damage. It looks like it's just a one-time chance to drop the ring per drone there, which I do find interesting, and it doesn't say when it triggers, which is again interesting. Now this drone here, or the pawn as they're calling it, really just draws fire. You can control it a little bit. That will be, I believe, episode 4 in my Gambit Ultimate Guide series. Enough with that, let's go ahead and jump right into the build. The first thing you want to realize is that this ship does have 6 specials, 6 armor slots, which is a relatively high amount of both, and 8 weapon slots. But what's really interesting is that these 8 weapon slots can all be standard or countermeasure, which means I'm going for a countermeasure ship. I'm doing this because this means I am able to use one ship with dedicated specials and will be so much better at using countermeasures than all the other ones, and the others can be maxed out on damage like normal. This is great, and I highly recommend anyone do this, especially because of how important countermeasures are in this target. But not all of them work, as you'll see towards the end. Now, for the weapon, you want to go ahead and use the Rook Mortar. This came with a hull. I would use this one. Second best is fairly far away. That is Ascension Mortar. 3-4 months from now, I would expect a second one, maybe a Night Mortar or something to come out, and that would be 25% more damage, maybe 1% more anti-mortar evasion. Other than that, it should be the exact same. Also note that because these are mortars, they can shoot over mountains. In terms of armor, it is a similar story. We're going to use the tier 10.51, the Cynthian scale one, and this is helpful by a ton. The exact numbers I'll talk about in my roadmap episode 5 here, but these armors are extremely helpful, especially in the early stages of this target in reducing damage, and it does look like you're going to need it. They also do increase explosive damage by a small percentage here. I would go for a split 50-50 each. The battle report is not actually quite completely accurate and reflects damage dealt to drones currently, although that will be changed. Special number 1 is going to be an engine, and this is the Finray engine. This is the tier 10. This is the one I'm expecting to get replaced by the special that comes out a little ways later. Again, that will be in the roadmap video. The second option here is going to be a building damage special, and that is K2 Bombardment System. This is great. The second best option is going to be Siege Targeting 4. This gives you 200% building damage plus 200%. You do 3 times the damage using this special than without it. It's huge. It's fantastic. I would not consider any other special, maybe save one for this one. Special slot 3 is one that came with the ship. This is the Garrison Battery M2X, which is the escalation version of the Limited, although it is in the FM for very cheap. The Explosive Battery over here somewhere, that's the second best if you don't have the M2X. This one's great. Building damage, explosive damage, and a little bit of turret defense is pretty nice, although no combat speed, which is pretty standard for these things these days. Now, these last 3 specials are where my build is going to differ, and some of the advantages you're seeing on the left side are going to start to be realized. If you want to have success in this target down the road, you need to go for an extremely high splash build. A lot of people are putting on countermeasure specials and countermeasures on this ship. I wouldn't do that. A lot of people are putting evade here. I wouldn't do that. A lot of people are putting mortar reload. I would not do that. I would go for extreme amounts of evade, or extreme amounts of splash, and minimizing your spread. Most people will agree that the first special you should put on to accomplish this is the Ascension Mortar System, which I believe came out with the Everest here. It's a fantastic special. It's very, very good projectile speed and gives you more splash and less spread. This is what you want here. You want to have tight targeted fire on one small mortar, one small turret, I should say here, and this Ascension Mortar System allows you to do this. It's fantastic. The next two specials are going to be things that will either increase your splash or increase your splash and decrease your spread. The first is the narrow firing aperture. This is fantastic. Like I said, small spread is great for mortar holes. I would use this one. It's tier 6. You should all have that. It came out with the Prides, which was like a tier 5.5 hole. The other one is going to be a splash special at Viscosity Regulator. This also has a 27% radioactive damage. I don't find that to be helpful. I mean, obviously, you don't have any radioactive damage. It does nothing here, but the splash is fantastic. And what this allows you to do, and if you watch carefully on the left side, you can see this in a few areas, not immediately right here. You can target one turret and kill things like 3 or 4 ship lengths away from that. You can do massive damage because you have a ton of splash here. You can hit tons of things, wipe out entire different buildings at once. It's great. Entire different platforms at once, I should say. This is fantastic, and it's super fun to use, too. If for whatever reason you didn't do this, I might go for more reload, I might go for more projectile speed somehow, but it's not even close. You should really be using this one right here. You can even use it to kill slow-moving ships like this icebreaker I'm shooting at, which has a ton of health, which is pretty annoying. And that there is my regular build, and you'll notice there are no countermeasures on here yet because, like I said, we are going for a countermeasure build. Now that one's going to be different enough. I'm going to clear the entire thing. For that countermeasure build, you want one mortar, and that's going to be your range-finding mortar. That stick with that one. Your countermeasures are going to want to be 2 MDS3s. You don't want to do any more than that because each MDS3 has a salvo of 10. You have 2 MDS3s, you can shoot up to 20 incoming missiles at once, and the rough cycle time of the MDS3 is 2 seconds when you account for everything else here. You don't need to deal with more than 10 missiles per second at all in this entire target whatsoever. In fact, 2 is probably overkill, and you could stick with 1. You'd be perfectly fine with 1 MDS3 for this entire target. If you see anyone out there putting on 4 MDS3s, tell them no, don't do that. You're wasting your time here. MDS3s only shoot at 1 thing per target. The video you're seeing on the bottom, I only have 2 on that chip, and it works fantastic. It's overkill. You don't even need that many. The other 5 are going to be the Gale Force here. If you did watch the video, which I did say you should have, which was the target recon video, you'll notice that I had 3 on and it worked fairly well in most cases, but we're going to be hit with 2 overlapping mortars at some point in the future. More than that, I'm sure. They did it with the Everest, they'll do it with this one. And that's what I'd go for. The armor is the same. Also notice sprints I did not use because sprints did not matter. They don't work. They don't fire here. Even though they say they shoot down rockets and missiles, they don't, not in this target. Now, these last special slots here are going to be somewhat similar in terms of the engine, and really that's the only special that is the same. Just make sure you're matching combat speed with Finray here. Scrap your lionfish if you want to. And the other 4 slots are going to be used to boost projectile speed. And that first one is going to be the high velocity rounds because that is the best projectile speed special we have in the game. It's fantastic. It's still ranked 10, which is, pretty nice. You're also going to want to use any other projectile speed specials you can, which include the subaquatic propellant. This is only on here for the 25% projectile speed. That countermeasure reload does nothing because these are damage type anti-penetrative and anti-explosive, not countermeasure, so only the projectile speed applies because that is a generic buff. You're also going to want to use one of these reload specials. I like the Pretorius defense system a ton. It gives you anti-mortar and anti-missile reload, range, accuracy, etc., which is what you want. It's very nice and very helpful. Other options include Hydroatomizer, Gala, a few things like that, but I believe this one is slightly higher numbers in a few different categories. I'd stick with that. If not, you'll correct me in the comment section. The other one is going to be another projectile speed special, if I can possibly remember what I put on here. I'm sure it was incredibly important. Projectile speed, aha, I saw it right there. Advanced optical tracking gives you a solid 25% projectile speed. We need more generic ones like this. I like it. At this point, you could ship it up and call it good. You don't need anything else on here. You can't put on Hyper 30 because while that does give you some projectile speed, it also gives you a fair amount of combat speed, so you're going to move far ahead of everything else here, which is not good. You don't want to have that. You want your ships to stay stacked. Now, what I'm instead going to recommend is Guidance Scrambler 3, because there are some turrets in this target, which if you watch my target recon video you know, which do have the King Killer mechanic, which means they shoot at the ship with the highest health. Because they're missiles, they will be shooting at this ship sometimes, and they'll miss more often than not because I have evade on there. And they're actually going to shoot at this more than 20% of the time because they'll be missing more often and it will stay at higher health for longer. It's a similar concept to if you increase your missile resist by a ton. Now, this is not a great special, but there really are no better options here. I suppose you could use the turret defense special to give it more turret defense, but that's really not very helpful, and because that stacks with survival and it's not separate to that one, it's not extremely helpful. So I think Guidance Number 3, as strange as it sounds, is going to be great to reduce damage from missiles by a lot. It doesn't do anything more than Agility System 4. Agility System 4 is the same with a longer build time and helps with PvP. This is a garrison hull, so it's not going to help with PvP. In any case, that was my build video. If you have questions, go ahead and let me know. I'll be sure to get back to those and talk about that. Like I said, this is the most important ship in the game right now. I'll talk about this a little bit more in the roadmap video. I am planning on one ship like this ran in the flag slot until the flag comes out, then I'll replace that. And I'll only build the 3 regular gambits. I know a lot of people are building, or 3 other regular gambits for a total of 4. A lot of people are building 5 ships. I'm sticking with 4 because the flagship is going to come out. If you don't have the tokens for everything I talked about in the video right here, right now, don't worry. Just make sure you save 2 weeks for the FM, and if anything, you can leave the armors blank because we're eventually getting new ones, although the build time on most of this stuff here, the majority of it, is fairly low. So if you have questions, go ahead and let me know. I'll do my best to get those answered for you. This is a list of everyone's name who's a channel member currently, so huge thank you to all of them. I'll be out with the other 2 videos in the Ultimate Gambit Guide. Make sure you subscribe to see those. With that said, and until next time, this has been Derpy, signing out, helping you be a better pirate.